Oh my gosh, such a rough morning. Such a rough morning already. I mean, not, not like the worst morning ever, but just some technical difficulties this morning, so I'm running a little late. Um, and I've got so much stuff to do here. So you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and start jumping into getting this stuff rolling here because I've got to rearrange windows on my screen here, and I've got to, what else do I need? I've got so much stuff to do. Um, I've got something to set up. I want to share some stuff with you, but I didn't get a chance to set it up on my computer yet, so I'm going to have to do that in a minute, which is going to look weird to you guys because I won't be on screen, but I have to walk over and set that up to make sure it's working, and it's just all kinds of stuff this morning. But I hope you're having a good day. It is hump day. It's Wednesday. I believe it's Wednesday, the 21st of July, and wow, this month has just zipped by. Let me get all this stuff set up here. Then that way, at least if I get comments and such, I can interact with you guys, and that is really great. Oh, great ads. Oh yeah, because my videos are monetized, so now I have to see Kachava ads at the beginning, but that's okay. That's okay. Just getting this stuff worked into the mix here. Oh, hang on, I got to set this up. So what's going on? Well, like I said, I have a lot of plans for today to show you guys, but oh, where's that? I went to go log in this morning and my cameras weren't showing up on feed, so it kind of pushed me way back. Plus, I had a couple things I was doing in the shop before I even got into doing this, so I was already behind when I started, and that didn't help matters much. Let me go ahead and get all my windows arranged here. I'm just getting the chat windows up. So I stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And with each of those platforms, there is a comment, chat, whatever box that you can jump in and say hey. So I would really enjoy seeing from you all. If you're in there watching, go ahead and drop a comment, ask a question, just wave and say hi. That would be awesome. All right. All right. Now, one of the things that, usually I give in the beginning, I say, what I did on my day off from live streaming, which is not a day off for me. It's usually busy. And yesterday was really warm, but not humid. So I did get some stuff done in the shop. I had so much sanding to do, and I had some other things that needed to be taken care of that I didn't quite get to a finished point where I wanted to be. I wanted to be to the point where I'm ready to slap on stain or oil or whatever this morning. But that did not happen because of just life and things. But I mean, that's okay because it just gives me things we can do on stream. Some of the stuff I have to do won't take very long before we get to that point. And the other thing that I did yesterday was I took a trip to my hardwood dealer. I think I mentioned that on Monday that I was going to see about going to my hardwood dealer because I was kind of out of wood. And I went to the hardwood dealer yesterday. It was nice. I took a camera with me. Excuse me. And I made a short video because people ask me a lot. It's one of those most frequent questions that I receive is, where do you get your wood? And the short answer is a hardwood dealer. It's basically a store for buying hardwood. It's not like going to a hardware store or a Lowe's or something like that. It's a very different experience. Probably more like a BJ's or a Costco in that there's just big giant shelf racks and they are stacked with raw lumber. And a lot of people have never done that before. They've never been to a hardwood dealer. And so you may not even be thinking of shopping at one, but if you go and do a little googly search, you'd be surprised that you might find a hardwood dealer within an easy drive from where you are. And I'm going to tell you that if you're buying lumber to use in projects and you have the ability to mill your lumber, we'll get to that in a second, but if you have the ability to mill your lumber, It is the cheapest way to purchase wood. You can buy wood from a Home Depot, but only very limited species. I think Home Depot, most of them, and Lowe's as well. I think they'll carry some oak boards. I don't know what else they carry there. Poplar, probably, pine. They don't carry, maybe some maple, but I doubt it. They used to, at least my local Home Depot used to carry a lot more hardwoods. And the thing about their hardwoods are that they are what we call S4S. They're surfaced on 4 sides. So it's finished lumber. And the other thing about buying at a hardware store or whatever is that you're usually paying by the linear foot. So they'll mark out a price per linear foot, and then however long that board is, multiply that by the price, and that's what you pay. It's much more expensive, much more. Whereas if you go to a hardwood dealer, chances are they deal in board feet. Board feet is a way that they've calculated how much actual physical wood you're buying. It's usually sized by the quarter. So, and the quarter means the thickness of the wood. So this is 3/4 of an inch. So this would be 3/4 wood. If it was a full inch in thickness, that would be called 4/4. They don't call it 1 inch, they call it 4/4. If you're buying 1.5 inches, that's 6/4. And 8/4 is, 2 inches, and 10/4 is 2.5, and so on and so forth. So anyway, instead of linear feet, because these things are in different thicknesses, they do it by board feet, which is the length times the width times the thickness. And that calculation comes out to a board foot length, and then they have a price per board foot. And that allows you to buy different length boards and different width and different thicknesses and not have to worry about, some complicated thing. It's a pretty simple method that they've used. And this, as far as I know, is the way they've been pricing wood for years and years and years. And when we get into the actual video, hopefully that plays, I will show you that I actually have an app on my phone. I think you can get one for Android too. I have an Apple. But so on my iPhone, I have an app that actually allows me to put all of those different dimensions in and the price, and it gives me a total for that. Plus I can keep notes on the different boards and what their prices and dimensions were and such. It's a pretty handy little app, and it's really cool. And it really is, it makes the shopping experience kind of a little less mysterious. I know when I first went into a hardwood dealer and I was like, how do you figure out what this stuff costs? And I would just take a board up there and they'd say, it's this much. And I'd be like, okay, I'll take your word for it. Because I had no idea how to figure it out. Then I got an app. I kind of looked this stuff up and it's like, how do you figure board feet? And I got an app, and figuring this stuff out now is much less mysterious, and it makes a lot more sense. I know the first time, another way you can buy wood is online, and there's a place called Woodworker's Source, which is where I bought my first piece, and I really didn't understand board feet at the time, and they used board feet as a calculation. I had no idea, so I ended up with boards that were shorter than I wanted or longer than I wanted, and it was really, it just messed with my head because I couldn't wrap my head around the whole board foot thing. The other thing about buying wood online is it's expensive. It's still rough wood, so it's cheaper typically than buying finished wood, but you have to pay shipping costs, and shipping is not cheap these days. And I think Woodworker's Source is in, I want to say Arizona. So if you're on the East Coast, getting wood shipped from Arizona and it's heavy, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. So there may be I think there's a couple of other online sources that you can go to. You actually can buy wood on eBay. I see people listing usually more exotic type boards and such, like if you wanted monkey pod or wingay or something else, or even live edge boards and such. I see those on eBay quite a bit. So you can find the stuff there, but like I said, shipping is going to get you. So your best bet for staying economical and still having a good selection of wood is to go to a hardwood dealer and find one hopefully in your area. Even if it's not a full-blown hardwood dealer, a lot of times there are mills where they actually cut the logs and cut them into boards and such, and they will have stacks of drying wood, and they sell to hardwood dealers, but they also sell to the public. So go look it up. You might find them as well. The other thing I was talking about earlier was about finishing the wood, and I mill up my own wood. I don't cut the trees and cut the boards, but I bring the rough lumber in here and I surface it on all four sides to get it to the dimensions that I need and get rid of all the saw marks and things like that, right? So all of these boards that you see here have been, you know, they all started life as long fuzzy boards with saw marks and everything else in them that I have planed and jointed and run through my saws and gotten down to usable lumber, which is part of the hardwood purchasing experience, if you will. That being said, a lot of hardwood dealers have surfacing equipment, and they will surface the wood for you for a fee, which, you know, can start to add up, but it is still cheaper to have them surface your wood for you. And if you don't have the equipment, you don't have the options, right? So, but it's cheaper than buying S4S wood online or at a Home Depot or whatever. If you have like a Woodcraft or a Rockler, I believe places like that carry a much wider assortment, so you can find walnut and red oak and white oak and things like that. They do carry those boards, and usually they're surfaced on at least a couple of sides. Pay a little bit more, but at least it's better than shopping at Home Depot or Lowe's. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against Home Depot or Lowe's, but that is not the place you need to be buying your wood. I'm just telling you right now. All right, now I am going to roll over to my computer and see if I can set this up, and hopefully it'll play and you can hear it. So you'll be seeing an empty shot right now. Actually, hang on a second. You know what I need to do? I need to do this. I started it up, but I didn't turn it on, like, you know, I didn't put the finishing touches on it. Is it going to come up? Come on, start. Start. There it is. Okay, had to start up the computer. All right, I'm going to walk over here and look at this screen. Now you're going to see some funky stuff on your screen here, but don't worry, it'll all be good. Yeah, there's that. So I'm going to open up this video. Pay no attention to the nonsense on your screen as I scroll through and find this video that I just uploaded. Here it is. I'm going to pull this up and pause it and maximize. Well, I'm going to try to maximize. I'm going to do it. Well, I don't want to do that yet. I need to make sure that this window is showing up as a full screen window. It might be. Let's see. Now, the other thing is I don't know if I'm getting audio for this, so let's do this. And I'm going to bring my mouse with me so that way I can control it from where I sit. And I'm going to look at the screen here and see what you're seeing. So let me look at one of my video feeds here. And like I said, I was hoping to have this set up. Why is Facebook being junky like this? Come on, Facebook. What the hell? Well, hopefully my screens are showing here. That looks good. I'm going to check it. We're going to run it. Hopefully my screens are showing here. That looks good. I'm going to check it. We're going to run it. If I can get my mouse to work. I have no audio. Do I? Do not have audio. All right, so we're not quite there yet. Hang on a second, because I need to. You want the audio for this? Let me go back over. And like I said, this is part of that stuff I was trying to work out yesterday or this morning, and And whoa, I need to mute you. This morning and whoa, I need to mute you. There we go. I needed to mute that. I needed to add an audio source for this. What? I thought I muted this. There we go. I do not want to hear myself over and over again. But there is audio for this video, and I want you to hear it. So we're going to add an audio source. Add audio capture. Okay. Oh. And we're just going to make this the default. Say OK. And let me go back to the video and see if that's actually going to register. Hang on a second. Whenever I go hardwood shopping, I always take a couple of tools. I think it is. Okay. Alrighty, we're going to try this one more time. Let me back this sucker all the way to the beginning. And I'm going to run back over here and we're going to do this one more time. Like I said, I apologize. You know, technology is not always a wonderful thing. And I have to turn this on to make sure that I'm hearing it. I often get asked where I get the wood for my projects, and the simple answer is I go to a hardwood dealer. And today I went to my local place and I thought I would bring along a camera and kind of just show you what it's like to poke around the lumber racks and pick up some wood. Whenever I go hardwood shopping, I always take a couple of tools with me. One of them is pretty obvious. I've got a tape measure. And the other is an iPhone app that I found a while back. I've actually been using it for a couple of years, and it's called Board Feet Easy Calculator, and it's really handy when you're shopping for wood. So basically you enter in the length of the wood, the width, the thickness, and the price per board foot. You hit calculate, and it'll give you the total board feet and the total cost of that board. It's really important to have because basically hardwood dealers don't sell by the linear foot like a Home Depot or Lowe's does. They sell by the board foot. And when you start buying multiple pieces of wood, it gets kind of hard to keep track of what that price is. Okay, so here we are in the lumber stack here, and I'm just going to kind of navigate what we got. So you can see basically they've got these listed like this is white oak. 4/4 boards, $6.25 for board foot. And as we move down the stacks, you can see here's piles of ash. They're usually separated by 4/4, sometimes wide boards, sometimes narrow boards, usually by thickness. So you'll find 4/4, you'll find 5/4. This is 4/4 hard maple, 10-inch wide boards for $5.75 a board foot. And then you can see down below, those are probably 5/4 boards. There's some hard maple. There's some 5/4 curly maple. It gets a little bit more expensive, curly maple. There's some 10/4. That is 2.5-inch wide boards right there. So you can see it basically lots of different types here. You can find some pretty nice stuff here. I think I pulled this board out here. This is curly maple. I did not buy this. I should have. I really should have bought this because this is a really nice looking board right here. But it's, I mean, look at it's got some really nice figure in there. I think I flipped it over just to check out the other side, but I slid it back, and this one did not go home with me, sadly. I think I should have probably picked that one up, but yeah, I did not. This is some sycamore. This is quarter sawn. I just finished making a project with quarter sawn sycamore, and you get this great figure and grain in there. So it's a fun piece of wood to work with. Really cuts well, really sands well. So this is where I spend a lot of my time, is over in the cherry piles. So you've got longs and short boards. You've got 4/4 here. You've got wide boards. $5.50 for cherry is pretty good. Look at the beautiful grain on that stuff. I mean, that's pretty stuff. And so if you look at the ends, you'll see on the ends of these, you can see these numbers on there. And what those numbers mean is that's how long that board is. So there's 10-foot boards, 9 foot, 8.5. I think I popped over to the walnut next and looked at a couple pieces of walnut. Walnut, pretty pricey. I didn't pick up any of this walnut. Now this stuff's pretty clear too. I mean, look at the grain on this one. That's gorgeous. That's some good looking walnut right there. But I did not buy this walnut. I think I got some different walnut. I moved over to the sapele. I should have gotten the sapele. This is quarter sawn sapele, and that's beautiful. Sapele's in the mahogany family, and that's a beautiful piece of sapele right there. I did not pick up any oak either. Surprisingly, I was going to get some red oak. This is flat sawn, and it's really pretty stuff. Just a lot of 4/4 boards. Like I said, I'm just kind of checking it out, showing you what's what here. You can see the 5/4 down there, some 6/4, thicker stuff right there. That's a really wide board right there, very wide. Here's some maple. They've got hard maple, they've got soft maple, and you know, different thicknesses, different widths. Then we get over into the exotics. There's some purple heart, some Paduke, which is a really pretty. It's kind of got some orange tint to it. Look at that. That's awesome stuff. I need to get some Paduke, but I was not looking to spend a lot of money today on the exotics. That's really nice wenge. They don't have wenge very often, so I really should have picked it up, but it's expensive stuff. This Paduke, the 4/4, is $10 a board foot. And down at the bottom, there you go. There's some zebra wood. Now this is 8/4, so that's 2-inch thick zebra wood at $20 a board foot. So not cheap at all. I think that's some babinga right there. And all this stuff looks really great, but look, $16.50 a board foot by the time you get that stuff, you know, measured out and stuff. So yeah, probably not a lot to do there. I did see some good pieces of cherry and a couple of other stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and grab a rack. And this is pretty common. You'll find racks like this. These are like old railroad cart racks, and you basically just push it down to where you want, find the boards that you want, and then you basically just start measuring and load them onto the cart. So a real quick calculation on this board right here. It's 10 feet long, it's 10 inches wide, 4/4, it's $5.50 a board foot, and my total cost for this board is $45.83, which is not too shabby for some really primo cherry. Okay, the next stop is some white oak. I think I was going to get some flat sawn. They don't usually carry quarter sawn, but I wanted to get some 4/4 white oak, just some flat sawn stuff. So kind of looking through the boards there, you can see it's pretty expensive, $6.75 a board foot. I think that was for the wide boards. And I found a good one here that's about 6 feet long, and I think it's let's see how wide that is, 7 inches wide and 6 feet long, 4/4. So I think I pull out the old calculator here to do a little quick math here. And let's see, we've got 6 feet and we've got 7 inches wide. And the cost on that was, what was the cost on here? No, it was $6.25. So we calculate that is going to be $18.75. Now here's the thing. If I buy that same board, it'll be surfaced on 4 sides. But if I bought that at Home Depot, that's about a $40 board right there. So you can see your money goes a lot further when you actually go and buy rough cut lumber at your local hardwood place. While I was in here, I found some rustic walnut 4/4 stuff. Usually the 4/4 means that there's imperfections in the board, like there's a little knot right there, maybe another one up there. But overall, the grain on this thing is beautiful, and I think it'll clean up really nice. So I went ahead and grabbed this board and stuck it on my pile too, because at $4.95, it's a hard price to beat. Finally, on today's shopping list, I went upstairs. I hadn't been up here before, actually, but this is where they keep the hickory. And they didn't have a lot of hickory. I was a little disappointed they didn't have any 4/4 hickory, but I did find some 5/4, which I can mill down. And hickory is really cool. It's just a really rustic looking piece of wood. And I searched through a few pieces here. I found this one piece that really kind of struck me as having some pretty grain to it. So I went ahead and added that to my wood pile as well. So this will be my first hickory project. All right, so I got everything picked out that I needed, and they're really nice, and they'll actually cut it up into the length so it fits in the back of my car. And yeah, all it's needed to do now is haul it back home, and we're good to make more stuff. All right, so I hope you enjoyed your little tour of my, well, I call it local, but it's not that local. It's about 55 minutes to get here, 50 to 55 minutes. But that's my my hardwood dealer. They're super nice guys. They, I didn't want to put them on camera because, you know, not everybody wants to be on camera. But they're really helpful, and they always take good care of me. Good prices, good wood, and you know, hopefully if you've never been to a hardwood dealer, you kind of have a little bit better idea of, you know, pretty much what they look like. Everyone that I've been to, which is, you know, 3 or 4 of them, they're all pretty much look the same, with the same kind of racks and the same setup and the way they price things and lay it out. Some of them are easier to deal with than others, but they usually have the push carts, and you go and you just take your stacks and put the wood on there that you want. Most of them have measuring tapes and stuff there if you don't have them yourself, and they're almost always really helpful people and willing to you know, lend a hand if you need it. So anyway, that's CP Johnson down here in Virginia, and if you are in the Virginia area, I would say go give them a try, because they've got some of the best prices around without driving for 3 or 4 hours, at least from the Northern Virginia area. So all right, all that's left for me to do now is to head home. So thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day. See ya. Okay, hopefully, yeah, it's back to, let me close this so I can make sure we're back on camera. So hopefully you enjoyed that little trip into the hardwood dealer. Like I said, I get there probably once every 2 or 3 months, depending. I try to stock up on wood and, you know, just kind of fill my racks that I have here. Why is the Facebook being like this? This is weird. So my Facebook feed is just like jank. So let me fix that. But yeah, I try to fill up on wood best I can for the projects that I want to make, and that way, you know, I don't have to make a trip every single time I'm going to get, you know, I need wood. I tell you what, I'll do a little show and tell. So let me grab some boards here and show you what I got. First, now, here's the thing. Like I said, they because I don't have like a pickup truck to do this with, they are really great. I kind of figure out how long, like minimum length I have for my boards, and then they'll cut them down for me. They just have a saw and zip them in half, and then they all fit in my vehicle. This is the hickory, and usually I'll take a marker and just write the type of wood on there, because sometimes when you've got a bunch of different types of wood laying around, they get a little confusing at times. So this is thicker than I really like. It's 5/4, which is a lot of milling to get this. Like if I'm going to make, I don't know, like a sewing machine base or whatever, I usually like to have 3/4 boards, and this is twice that thickness. So I would have to mill a lot of this off. But you can see, kind of has some really interesting stuff going on here. So I'm really curious to mill this up. I have seen a lot of hickory used. I've never actually made anything with hickory myself, but it's really nice. It's kind of got a orangey yellowish look to it, but sometimes that's deceiving, because sometimes air oxidizes the wood as it's been sitting there for a while, and all this stuff has been dried over a long period of time. So as it dries, sometimes the wood, kind of like cherries like that, where it'll change color over time. Let's see what else I got here. So I got some nice cherry. I think I've got, well, I bought 2 long cherry boards, but they're now shorter now. But so this is the cherry that I got. Really nice flat sawn. So with flat sawn stuff, you get lots of cathedral pattern in here, which is this big arches, right? Which looks really nice. Usually these get cut down into 3-inch wide sections. So this board, I went after this one because I think it's like 10 inches or almost 10 inches. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, so this is over 10 inches. It's 10.5 inches, which means that I can mill it up and still segment out 3 long strips of 3-inch wide boards out of here. And that's kind of my bread and butter, our 3-inch boards, 3-inch wide. So, but I've got 4 about this size because they cut these in half for me. So let me see what else we've got here. I think I did mention in the video that I got some, I got one board of rustic walnut. Now walnut, as long as it's the heartwood, which is what's the dark part, the rustic stuff means that sometimes there's just things that they can't, you know, there's boards that they can't get around and get really clear stuff out of. So this one has like a knot right here. There's a knot up in here, right here. There's a crack and a knot. Some little pinhole knots right here. So this is not the clearest board, but I think I can get really usable wood out of this. And I think it was what, $4.50 or something like that a board foot. That's crazy cheap for some walnut. And this stuff, where it doesn't have the little knots and stuff, has really beautiful grain. This stuff will look amazing once it's milled up. So I've got a couple of boards like this because, like I said, I bought, it was a very long board, and then they, when they milled it up, now I've got some shorter boards. I mean, these things are still probably 6 feet long, so they're not super short. This is the piece of white oak that I got. So this was also flat sawn. You can see on the side here, there's, you probably can't see it, but there's like nice medullary rays and stuff because that would be from the quarter sawn look. But this stuff is really nice, 4/4, and I will make some nice stuff out of this. This is over, I think like it was almost 7 inches wide, which allows me, like I said, to get 2 3-inch wide strips out of here. But white oak has gotten so expensive. It's I say $6.25, I think, for that, which was not a wide board, but $6.25 is pretty. A board foot is pretty expensive, and whereas if you compare that to the red oak, I think the red oak was like $3.25. Yeah, so if you have a place that's local that you can buy wood like that, it's really nice. Now, like I said, even if you don't have all the milling equipment like a planer and a joiner and stuff, a lot of the places that sell this stuff actually do mill it up for you, and it's still cheaper than buying it like online or whatever. So let me look here. I was just going to look at my my phone for a second because they emailed me my receipt, and I was just looking to see if I can find, here we go. So my invoice from yesterday. So I ended up with a 5/4 hickory board, which was 7.5 board feet. The hickory was $3.65 a board foot, so pretty cheap. So that hickory board, $27.38. The walnut that I showed you was 6 board feet at $4.95. So $4.95 a board foot for walnut, even though it's got knots in it, not too bad. So that was $29.70, so a little less than $30 for that board. The cherry, I got some nice cherry, 4/4, 6 foot plus premium red. So it was a little bit more pricey, but still not bad. Cherry is $5.50 a board foot. That's really manageable. I got 15 board feet of cherry because I do most work in cherry. So what was that? 82 bucks for the cherry. So 82.50 for the cherry. And then finally I got that white oak board, which was only 3 board feet, but at 625 that was 18.75. So all together my total was 158.33 for all of that wood. That's really not very expensive. With tax, 166 bucks. So not bad. And I love going there because they have me on their little system. They do it all on their phone and it pops out a receipt for me. And so kind of helps me to keep track of that stuff. Yeah, building materials have gotten really super expensive. And I was talking to the guy at the hardwood place, and he was like, "Yeah, man, it's you know they're going up and going up." And I was like, you know, I appreciate the fact that they are. So they said they have a tough time getting some of the lumber in. There's a big demand for it right now, because a lot, especially with the building material stuff, right? Because if you're, you know, they're trying to build more houses and do all this other stuff, so they're trying to increase now construction, which means there's a higher demand, and there was a supply chain issue. I think it's getting better, and he did say that they're starting to get more and more, and then a lot of the stuff they actually had quite a bit of wood. So I think the supply is getting better, but the demand is still high, which keeps the prices inflated a bit. Plus, you know, things are just inflated right now. So, but even still, I don't recall paying that much less for some of this stuff. It's gone up fractionally. The only thing I've seen that's gone up a lot is the white oak. I think that's because that's a preferred wood for people who make a lot of cabinetry and things like that. So there's probably a big demand for white oak stuff, more so than red oak. I mean, I could go out in my backyard and cut like a dozen white oak trees down. I have a lot of white oak trees in my backyard, and some red oaks too. But I'm going to leave them and get my wood from them instead. But yeah, the white oak has gone up tremendously. I mean, flat sawn white oak for $6.25 a board foot is crazy. That's more than cherry. I used to pay like $4.25 a board foot for flat sawn white oak. Quarter sawn is upwards of like $9 to $10 a board foot for quarter sawn white oak, just because it's in such high demand, and it's a more labor intensive process to get a high yield of quarter sawn wood out of a log. They have to flip it a lot more, whereas, you know, the flat sawn stuff, they just start slicing until it's down to nothing, and then they get a couple of quarter sawn boards on the side, and then the rest of it's all flat sawn or rift sawn. So it's much more expensive for them to get the quarter sawn, to get a high yield of quarter sawn, and also the quarter sawn boards are not as wide. But anyway, I was pretty happy with what I got. Ooh, I'm getting a UPS package tomorrow. How exciting. I was pretty happy with what I got there. Like I said, I drive, you know, it's 50 minutes or so. It's not a bad drive. It was a nice drive yesterday. For the savings that I get, it's so worth it. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the little trip to the lumber store. A lot of people ask me, you know, where do you get your wood? So I figured, you know, it's just easier to put that up there. I also posted that as a separate video on my YouTube channel. I put it up on my Facebook page, my JR's Woodshop Facebook page, so people can check it out and get a better idea of what it's like to shop. Most people have never been to a hardwood store, and I remember the first time I went, it was kind of intimidating. I really didn't know what to expect. It's like I wanted wood, but I didn't really know what I was doing, and it's really not a hard process. It's just one of those things where you walk in and there's not like clerks walking around and with aprons on and all this. It's just very different. and it's kind of like a self-service thing. A lot of people are just, you know, they're in there and they're coming in, cabinet builders and all these other people, and they're like sifting through the boards and going through and putting stacks out, and you're like, okay, what do you do now? So really it's not hard. If you're feeling intimidated about going to a hardwood dealer, don't, because honestly, it's probably the best shopping experience. And the people who work there, it's not like they're just hiring, you know, the local teenager who needs a job. These people know their wood. And if you have questions about, you know, wood hardness, workability, Anything dealing with the particular different types of wood, they have a lot of knowledge. So definitely most of them are woodworkers or have been in the wood business for decades. So I would say probably, you know, that's your best source for getting your questions answered. And they're super helpful. I mean, they want to sell you the wood. That's how they make their money. So, all right. Well, that was show and tell, but now I have to move on because while I did not, well, I did get the shopping done yesterday. I didn't get all of my wood project stuff done yesterday, which I wanted to, but it just didn't work out. I got everything sanded to 150. I think this is the one I had to fix. So everything got sanded to 150, and then not this one. And then I kind of stopped at that point. So I have to finish these up. I think this was, I did such a good job, I can't remember. There was a split seam in here, and I came in and, oh, there it is. I came in and did some sawdust and glue. That's my favorite wood filler to get species specific. You know, to get a match. I've got some wood putty that I can use sometimes if I'm going to do a dark stain or something. But if I want my filler to match more, what I do is I just get a scrap piece and sand the hell out of it to get a lot of sawdust. And then I will mix some glue into that to make like a putty. And then I push it into the area. So I had a couple of splits here on these seams on these corners where they just, you know, it was very, very hairline kind of thing, but it bugged me. So on the bottom, you can see, probably, let me see if this camera's turned on. Did I turn this camera on? I did not turn this camera on. Hang on a second. Is it on now? It's not on now. What is the deal with my cameras? This GoPro is not wanting to cooperate. Okay, well, anyway, let's try this one. There we go. So you can see there's some of the glue left on the bottom here, so I'll have to sand that off as well. But on the edges, it did a really nice job. So you can see there's just a really thin seam right there, and there was just a little bit of an open crack in there. So I used the little putty stuff that I made, filled those in, and I had to let those dry overnight, and then I sanded that stuff off. So those look really good. And let's go back here. I want to know why my camera's not working though. So you know what I'm going to do? It may just need to be powered up. I did take the GoPro with me yesterday, so I may have drained it. So I'm going to plug the power in, and we're going to make this thing come alive. There we go. We've got power, and I have no idea if I've got. Let's go to camera 4, shall we? No camera 4 here. So once again, the technical issues are ruining my day. Let me just take everything out, see if this thing's on. You know, such is life when you're doing technical stuff. Maybe I'm out of power. Maybe I need a new GoPro. Is that what it is? I need a new excuse to buy a new GoPro. What is the deal with this thing? There we go. Plug this in, see if that works. I know you can't see anything right now, but trust me, it's on. Plug in the HDMI cable here. Maybe I can get this plugged in. There we go. HDMI's in. There we go. Good gravy. Way too much work. Way too much work for that little shot right there. But is what it is. It's my number 4 cam. It's the one I always stick things up in front of and go, here, look at this. Look how nice that looks. See, so it's nice that it works. All right, let me get back on the main camera here. Okay, sorry about that. This is just not a good technical day. Anyway, so I got these all sanded. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7 of them that have been sanded down to 150 grit, with the exception of like I said, I need to clean the bottom of that one off. But sanded to 150, I still need to do the really thin roundovers on the edges here. They just get an 1/8 inch roundover. It's my favorite roundover bit because it's just super subtle, but it breaks those edges just right. And I need to run the roundovers on these, which goes really quickly because you're not removing a lot of wood. It's just basically just shaving that edge off. I need to just get some sandpaper and rub out, break the edges on these handles, because these handles, I'm going to go back to my 4cam here. These handles, you can see them there, are really sharp edges right here. And I like to get those broken just ever so slightly with some hand sanding. I just grab one of these, old sandpaper discs and break the edges on those. And then the last thing I like to do is come back with a little 220 and just give a little final once over with some 220, which also does not take long because they're sanded pretty smooth right now. And I could finish them at 150, but I prefer to hit them with 220 just to kind of get things finished up. So let's go over to here. You don't need the glue, but we can go over here to the router table, and let me clean off some stuff off of here because that stuff is not helpful. But here's the router table already set up. It should be the exact setup I need. Let me just check it. I'm going to reset this just in case it moved slightly. So I'm just going to raise it up, and it's not plugged in right now, so I don't have any problem touching the bit. I'm going to raise it up until it makes contact with this edge right here. So let's go up, and it's contacting that edge, and I lower it down until this edge just slides over that front part of the bit. I know this is very hard to see because it's a small thing, but right now it's contacting that edge, which would leave a line on the wood. So let's go down just a little bit more. There it goes. So now it's just sliding past that edge, and that will give me a nice smooth roundover. So now I'm ready for power. So let's go ahead and grab my power cable, and we will plug this in. And then, like I said, I'm just going to run through all these boards really quickly because they've all been set up to get their roundover, except for one thing. Hang on, I do have to fix one thing. Right here where I said I had glued these and fixed this, I need to get the glue off the bottom here so that this is nice and flat. But that just takes a second. Because if this doesn't run flat on the table, I'm not going to get a good edge here. That's good. Same thing on this side. Okay, now we're ready. So I'm just going to keep grabbing these things and pulling them over here, doing the edges. I actually do, sorry, I'm reaching in front of you. Very rude. I actually do 3 edge routes. So I do one on the bottom, I flip it over, I do one on the top, and then I do one around the inside. It doesn't go all the way around. It stops because I've got these little corner brackets in here, and wherever the bearing, because this has a bearing on the top of it, wherever that bearing impacts the corner bracket, it removes the cutting head from the wood, so it'll ride up here on the bearing and then start the cut again, and then stop and then start the cut again here. I kind of like that look. It's a little different. So that's what we will do. So like I said, 3 passes, but they go really quickly because this stuff is really super easy to do. It's a very thin, small cut. But I think we're ready. So I'm going to go ahead and put my hearing protection on. I guess I will, let me put my dust collection up here just on the table, just to kind of keep it out of the air. suction going on here. All right, I think. All right, that did a job. You notice I had to actually make an adjustment because I was just getting a little bit of a line on here where that edge of that bit, where it kind of drops off, was just a little too high. I have a problem with my dust collection in that it is full. So in order to remedy that, we are going to have to, I'm going to have to change my dust collector because I noticed it wasn't pulling a lot, and I'm looking here. Oh my God, it's very full. And probably my large collector's full. So it's time to empty the dust bin, which is a necessary evil in the world of woodworking. I don't have a huge, it's like a, I don't know, like a 5-gallon bucket kind of thing going on. And it's, whew, sorry. Oh, I'm just pulling everything. I've got a 5-gallon bucket and it fills up pretty quickly. So and I need to put a new garbage bag in because I have a large garbage can. And what I do is oops, see, I'm going to walk right in front of you there. So what I normally do is I fill the garbage can with a bag. I say that like, you know, so basically, and then I bring this over and dump it in. So it looks kind of like that. So that's my large thing, because I can dump this in and get a couple of emptyings done. So here's a crazy thing. Did you know that garbage bags are actually inside out when you pull them out of the box? I just learned this not too long ago. So all of the seams that should be on the inside are actually on the outside. So when you put a garbage bag on, here's the crazy thing. What you do, instead of putting it inside and then wrapping it around, what you do is you put it on from the outside. And I actually looked this up to say if I wasn't crazy. And it's like, nope, that's the way you do it. Then you push the bag down into the can, because this is actually the inside of the bag. Believe it or not, it works that way for kitchen garbage bags and all kinds of them. I have a couple of little clamps that I just put on the sides here just to keep the bag from slipping. Then what I do is bring my very full dust filled, very full, and then I'm just going to dump this right into there, and it's going to create a lot of dust, unfortunately. But now this is empty. Now the problem I have, though, I know that my actual vacuum part is probably full as well. It's pretty clogged up. So I'm going to bring it over. It is not as easy to dump out. So this should be empty, but it's not, because I let the other one get too full. So we're going to dump that one out. Ugh. Good gravy. Anyway, I now have to clean off my filter a little bit here. It is caked up. So, all right. That should be much better dust collection now, because I was getting almost nothing before. So now, let me come back over here and try this. All right, much better. I now have a lot of smoke in here. I need to turn on my my dust fan over here and let it pull some of this out. Probably need to change the filter on this thing too, but for the moment, plug this in. I know, I'll keep walking in front of you. Just really bad camera etiquette here, but you know, sometimes you just gotta get things done. All right, put my dust filter on. That'll hopefully cycle some of that stuff out. And now we can move on with our lives. So, getting back to this, I don't know if I can show you that one edge. It's hard to see, but I could feel a sharp line on here. Right on this edge right here, I could feel a sharp line. And so all I did was I lowered that bit down just a tiny bit, just so that it was more curve and less line hitting there. But here's the inside, and you can see, so right when it gets to the edge, right here, it stops. So it goes up, stops, and then continues over to this side over here. So it just works its way around. But anyway, now that I've got it all kind of logistically laid out and settled, I go ahead and just start, got to figure out where I'm going to put these though when they're done. I can start cranking these out. So I'm going to do the finished ones over here. All right, let me get, I'm definitely going to be blowing out a lot of dust today. That was a lot of dust. Okay, back to this camera. I'm just going to start cranking through these now. You've seen the process. It's not that exciting. Okay, that is all of the edge routing, and it does a really nice job. Like I said, sometimes on the corners, because they're not perfectly square, it's a, you know, I kind of finish those up with a little 220 hand rubbing as well. So, you know, it's that. Let's see, what do we need to do now? Well, I'm done with this. I'm going to actually lower this bit down so I can use this as a storage surface now, or as a working surface. So I'm going to lower that bit all the way down. I've done all. Please tell me I did them all. Shoot. You know what I didn't do? I didn't do them all. I had one left. Oh, I got to set this back up again. Doggone it. Spoke too soon. One left. That's all right. Let me get this set really quickly here. Okay. I think we're good right there. Sorry about that. I had one more. It was hiding back there and I didn't see it. So one last one to do. This will go pretty quickly. And then we can move on. So let's do this. Okay, I was a little premature in pulling the plug on it, but now we are done because these are all done. So next step on this is to basically, I've got these 7 that I'm working on here. I need to break the edges of these things. Like I said, it doesn't really require a lot of sanding, but just enough to kind of break that edge. So typically what I'll do is just get my little sanding pad here. I'm gonna hold this on the edge and I'm just gonna work that edge until it's just not sharp anymore. And it doesn't require a lot. This stuff is really, this is the sycamore, which is not a really hard wood. So it's a lot easier for me to sand off. Let me just pull up the chats here. Make sure I'm not raided by anybody today. It's been a thing lately. Been getting raided by other channels, which is really cool. For those on Facebook and YouTube who don't know what in the world I'm talking about, it's a Twitch thing. Where basically if you've got a bunch of people on your channel and you're kind of done with your broadcast for today, you say, hey, let's go raid this other channel, and you take your viewers to a channel that you think they might be interested in. So it's kind of a cool thing. So that's happened to me a bit. But anyway, that's all I do. I just break those edges. They now do not feel sharp and won't cut my hand if I grab them. Let me take the lids. It's easier if I take the lids off when I do this. But yeah, I think this is a pretty healthy. This is like a 120 grit that I'm using for this. It doesn't take a lot. I just kind of work it around. And that's pretty much it. I mean, some of these are harder. This is the walnut, so a little bit harder to do on the walnut just because it's a hardwood, so it takes a little bit longer. But just breaking that transition line is all I want to do. So I'm going to zip through these pretty quickly. Just check each side, make sure I didn't skip anything. I have a habit of skipping things sometimes. It's not good. It's just got a lot of stuff that I'm thinking about doing and anticipating doing, and sometimes I just get a little ahead of myself. But we don't want to leave any side undone. Okay. I think probably the red oak will probably be a little bit harder to do as well. But these don't, you can see it doesn't take too long. And they feel really good on the hand. Actually, I don't mind leaving them at like a 120 because that way they're not super slippery. If I go to like a 150 and then a 220 and have them really smooth edge, I like it. The 120 gives just enough texture in there that it feels comfortable to hold, like you've got control of it and it's not slippery. So I will not go any finer than the 220 on just the rounded edges here. And I usually hit the underside with it just as well. But 220 is about where I go, just because, like I said, it feels broken, but like you've got a little bit of grip, which is not a bad thing when you're talking about lifting a 15-pound sewing machine plus the base, which is about 4 to 5 pounds. So you're lifting anywhere from 15 to 20 pounds with these things. You want them to have some good grip. All right. That is all of these. Now I just have to do the shorties right here. This is the cherry. Cherry's kind of a medium hardness. It's not too difficult. It sands really well. I mean, cherry is such a great wood to work with. It's one of the reasons I like it. It stains pretty well. It cuts super smooth, sands really smooth. It's just a joy to work with, which is why so many people like working with it, I guess. There's not a lot of challenges that come with cherry. Probably the biggest thing with cherry is in the finishing, because cherry can be a blotchy wood. For those of you who don't know what blotchy woods are, they kind of have a tendency to soak up stain unevenly, so you can get darker spots and lighter spots. There's ways to combat that depending on like what you're using. You can use a pre-stain conditioner is usually a pretty good way. But I'm not a big fan of pre-stain conditioners because I think you lose a little color with a pre-stain. The way that I get around it is I use a very dark stain. So everything's dark, so you don't really notice if there's blotchiness. It's not in your face blotchiness. It still stains pretty evenly because I use such a dark stain on it. If I was going with a lighter stain, I would definitely do a pre-stain conditioner on cherry, just so that I get something nice and even. These are the red oak. I wish I had some redwood. That would be kind of cool. But these are red oak. And it's a little bit harder, denser wood. I'm not sure what it is on the Janka scale. Maybe a 1200 on the Janka scale or whatever. The Janka scale is just a scale that was created to kind of define the hardness and the density of woods. So like an ironwood or something like that, super high on the scale. Whereas, you know, a cherry or the or pine or something like that would rank super low on your Janka hardness scale. So you can go look up probably a Wikipedia on that, and it'll break down wood species for you on their Janka hardness. But it's just kind of a universal measurement that woodworkers and craftsmen use to figure out how hard that wood species is. And that kind of gives you an idea of like how hard it's going to be on tools, because the harder the wood is, the more it can dull your tools and things like that. So, and also it usually is a pretty good predictability in how heavy the wood's going to be, because usually if it's hard, it's also dense. The sapele, I made some sapele stuff, and that stuff is super dense. It weighs almost as much as the white oak that I used. That is lovely. All right, so that didn't take too long. All right, but now what we have to do is a little finish sanding. So this won't take long either, because I'm going to do a 220, and it's going to be a very light 220 sanding. I've done most of the heavy sanding already, so doing the 220 sanding should go by pretty quickly. The heavier or coarser the grit that you're using, usually the longer it takes to sand with that grit. So I started some of these I started with 80, like the red oak, and the sycamore I started with 80 because of the way that the grain was on the outside of the wood. Some of them I started at 120 because they were a little bit smoother to begin with. But as you're doing those coarse grits and you work through those, then when you kick up to a 150, it takes about half as long to do it with a 150. It'll take about half as long as that. Oh, you know, I did this whole thing. I never lowered this. Let me get this lowered down. But yeah, so it takes less time with the finer grits. And I'm going to move my computer over here, get it out of the way. And we're going to set up with some 220 on my, do I have 220 on here? I have a 150 on here. I should have a fresh 220 here somewhere. Right here, 220? Or I can grab a fresh 220, I guess, out of the drawer. Let me grab a fresh 220 out of my supply drawer over here. And that way, I know that I'm going to get nice, clean sanding. Now, here's the thing. I always kind of write the grit on the back. Can't see me. I always write the grit on the back of these things, because if you've used them for a little bit, they get really dusty, dirty, to the point where you can't read the actual, even though they put it on the back here, like this one says grit 220 on there, right? You can read that where it says it on here. It says grit 220 right down here. But once this gets all dusty, dirty, it gets really hard to read those numbers anymore. They kind of get worn off. So I just take a Sharpie and write it on there. And then as I pick them up after I've used them, it's real simple for me to know, oh, well, look, there's a 120, a 220, whatever. But let's get this set up here. And then we will give these a nice final sand. How many we got here? 1227. I might be able to get a finish on one of these. I think I'm going to get a finish on one of these. That's my goal. I'm going to finish one of these. I'm going to do, let's get through the sanding really quickly, and then I'm going to do an oil stain on the walnut. I just want you to see what that looks like. as it kind of gets transformed. So let's go ahead and do this really quick. We'll go ahead and get all of these sanded to 220. I have another one here. This one's already been finished. So this one's been done. There's not much left to see on this one. This is a small sycamore. So it's already been sanded to 220. But these others need to be. I'm going to pull this off. These have been sanded. I might just hit these really lightly, but these have already been sanded. So I just need to hit the sides. One trick that I can use to make sure I'm getting a complete sand is just kind of put a pencil mark on here. It's not much of a mark, and it's just kind of a wiggly line down there. But as the 220 removes that sand, or removes that pencil mark, I know that I'm really smooth on here. So that's kind of my little test for that. Okay, I need some ears, and we're just going to crank through these really quickly. Oh, but you know what I need to do? I need to plug in my sander, because it would probably work just a little bit better if we had power. Power is always a good thing in the right hands.
Okay, that is all of the sanding I need to do with the sander anyway. One thing I might do
really quickly. I'm going to take this hose off and use it to vacuum the dust off of these things. But let's start with this one. I want to see this one with some oil on it because I love the book match top on this one. I mean, it just turned out really cool. So I want to see what this looks like with some oil on there. And what I need to do is clean this off. So I'm going to go over to my shelf over here and grab some naphtha. I can find there we go. There's some naphtha right here. And got my fan turned off. I need to turn this fan on. Hang on a second. Let me move these over. And the reason I say I need a fan is because it helps to dry the wood a little bit more. If I'm going to put a finish on here, I'm going to turn this fan on and just kind of, it'll help to keep the wind down. So two things I can do. First is try to get all the dust off of here before I finish these things. But let me grab, let's see, I'm going to grab a fine sandpaper here. This is a 320 right here. I'm going to clean this off with the vacuum first. Okay. And the reason I just try to get anything that's in here out, anything that's filling up the grit. And then I need my sanding block if I can find that thing. There it is. So I'm going to get my little mouth sanding pad and I'm just going to put this on. And what I want to do is just touch up these edges a little bit, just ever so slightly, just touch them up with the 320. And that just carries that smoothness over to it. 320 won't change the profile or anything. It just really knocks down any imperfections. So a little bit of a line right there. So all I'm looking is to make sure that these things, like the corners, got really nice and rounded. And this doesn't take a long time, but it's the little things that you do that add up to value, at least in my opinion. And check the bottoms here. These look really good. So what I'm going to do after I do this little bit right here is I'm going to vacuum these off. And then I'm going to clean them with some naphtha. So to vacuum these, I've got a little dust attachment here. Let me do it this way. I got a dust attachment for my vacuum. And it just kind of loosens the dirt that's in the pores a little bit. And then the vacuum sucks that dirt out. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, I'm going to get a little stand for this thing. I think I have one over here. Got a couple of them that I've made. This one might work, might not. Oh, these are larger. I'll tell you what. Okay, these will work. So I've got a couple of boards here that either have screws or nails in them. And it just allows me, they're just like little pins, and it allows me to keep this thing off of the surface. And that way air gets to the bottom of it. So you can see it'll sit up on there and it won't mess anything up. And then I've got one that I can use to set the lids on right here. So I could do the same thing here. And the reason I need that is because I need these to dry. I'm going to clean them with naphtha. naphtha is my go-to cleaning material for a couple of reasons. One, because it dries quickly. Two, because it gives you a kind of a prelude of what the wood will look like with like an oil finish on it. And three, because it doesn't raise the grain, which is important at this stage. So as I apply this on here, you can see that it gets significantly darker. Let me go back to this camera so you can see what I'm looking at here. So there you go, you can see, look how gorgeous that looks. Now this will start to dry pretty quickly, but you can see that I'm getting dirt on the rag here. This is all the dust that was still sitting on this piece of wood. I don't want that dust on there as I clean these, because I'm going to put a finish on here. So my goal is to get them cleaned off and dried off. And you can see, I mean, it's already almost dry. This stuff dries really quickly. And that's why I like it, because it flashes off pretty quickly and does not leave any sort of residue. Now I don't need this at the moment. Set it aside. And let me do the bottom first here, I guess. I don't really care about the plywood on the bottom, but I'll wipe it off just to get any dust out of there. And then in these little pockets right here where we did the sanding for the handles, make sure that they get all cleaned out, because you don't want to leave anything behind. Okay. And then I'm going to flip this over, get a clean portion, get it a little bit more wet. And yeah, the walnut just looks so gorgeous. Look at that. There's the walnut. Look at that's kind of a prelude of how this will look with an oil finish on there. Walnut, I always do a natural finish on walnut just because it just has this incredible beauty. You got pulling a lot of sawdust off of here. Let me get the other side here a little bit wet. And then the other place that I try to get really cleaned out is here in the engraving on the front. Usually there's a lot of dust that accumulates in there, but that's where the vacuum comes in handy too. It helps lift a lot of the dust out of those engraved areas. All right. And then I can put this on here just to let those bottom parts complete drying while I do the top. Let me get this kind of situated there. I'm going to open this up, get a fresh face on here. And then the thing about the naphtha cloths, when you're done, just let them set out till they dry and then you can throw them away. But I go through this process just to make sure that, you know, when I go to put stuff on, that I'm staining wood and not dust and dirt. And like these won't be stained, but they are going to get oiled, and you don't want anything added to your process. All you want to do is stain the wood or oil the wood. I'm going to lift this up and do it because it's just easier if I lift this. This isn't my preferred stand for this thing. My other ones are down in the basement because I had lacquered a whole bunch of bases and I put them on stands so that they could be raised up while they dried. And get inside the groove right here. All right. And I mean, this thing is drying really quickly. I'm going to set it up here and let that finish. You know what else I'm going to do is I'm going to take these earmuffs off because I don't really need hearing protection from my fans. So let's talk about the finish we're going to put on here while these are drying. And for the walnut, I think what I'm going to do is use a walnut Danish oil. That's medium cherry. What do we got here? I'm just looking through my Danish oil supplies here. What do we got over here is a natural, and I think right here we go. So here's a walnut Danish oil. This is Watco. It's the brand I usually use because, well, it's easy to get a hold of. So dry your wood Let's see. Shake container thoroughly. Yeah, and you have to do that because things settle in this stuff and you want to get these mixed up. So basically, Danish oil is a oil and varnish mix. So there is a protective coat in the varnish, and then you've got the oil. But the nice thing is they're mixed together and it soaks into the wood. So it's not a top coat like a lacquer that sits on top of your finish or on top of your wood. This actually soaks in. So you've got a varnish that actually soaks into the wood. And basically what they say is shake it up, flood the surface, and then applying additional finish to any areas that need it. Allow to penetrate for 15 minutes. And then basically after 15 minutes, you kind of wipe it with a cloth and then do the whole thing over again. As far as pigment goes, this does have pigment in it because it's dark walnut, but that'll look beautiful on top of here. It's not like a super dark stain. It's just got some dark pigment to there. And once that pigment has affected the wood, you're not going to get any darker by applying a second finish. It's not like doing multiple coats of stain. Once the pigment has done its thing, it's soaked into the wood, it's done. The additional coats are to add more varnish protection, more varnish and oil protection. So basically after 72 hours is what they say, you can top coat these. You can do it with a polyurethane. My choice is lacquer. I prefer lacquer over a poly. If I was going to do a poly, I would probably do like a satin hand rub poly on there, but that's kind of a pain in the butt. I prefer hitting it with some lacquer, which would be this stuff right here. It's the Watco semi-gloss. I also prefer semi-gloss over a satin or a glossy. Glossy is too plasticky looking for me. The semi-gloss to me looks like a nice waxed piece of wood, and it just is a beautiful finish. So that's what I go for. Also, the lacquer adds a little bit more smoothness. So instead of having to sand this to 320 or 400 to get super smooth, when you lay down like 5 coats of lacquer on top of there, it's pretty smooth. So let's see here. I'm going back to my, gotta open my computer up here. All right, I think we're dry. Now I am going to turn my fan back off over here. I have a fan on because it's like 83 degrees in my shop. It's kind of warm, but that's okay. I've got one back here I can turn on. I don't want it blowing directly on here because I don't want things to dry off prematurely. But I'm going to get a couple of rags here. And I think I've got a pair of gloves here. Yeah, I got a pair of gloves that I can use right now. There we go. So let me get some gloves. I mean, I see people not using gloves when they use Danish oil, but like I said, it does have varnish in it and stuff. So I kind of prefer just to wear a glove. It just kind of keeps your fingers from getting sticky and slightly stained and such. And I try to reuse my gloves unless they're completely trashed. I try to take them off and then set them aside, and then I will use them again. Problem is when it's super hot outside, they get super sweaty on the inside. So kind of gross. Not gonna lie, kind of gross. Now, honestly, you know what? Let me do this right, because I do not want to make a complete mess of my table over here. That's not what that's for. I generally have a piece of cardboard that I set up and put on my table over here and use this as a surface for doing any staining. Ooh, need to vacuum out that computer. So that's all it is, just a piece of cardboard. Let me go ahead and look, I got a camera switch here for you. We will align that a little bit better so you can see a little bit more. Let me walk over here and just kind of tweak the view just a little bit like that, and we'll zoom out just a little bit. How about that? That looks pretty good. Okay, we'll start with the lid to the storage compartment. And I'm just going to go ahead and get that oiled up. And like I said, the nice thing about this stuff is you just put it on. Sometimes what I'll do is, and in fact, I think I'll do it this time, is get a cup, a small disposable cup, and it just makes it easier to get liquid onto your cloth if you just put it into a little cup. So let me go ahead and get this pushed down and turn. Oh, I'll never be able to get this open. Oh wait, it actually worked. It's because it's not caked up with stuff yet. But anyway, it's easier if I put it inside here. And you can see this is really dark stuff. But honestly, not as dark as you think once you start putting it on. But we'll get that closed up. And let me go ahead and get my towel folded up here into a nice applicator pad. But I like the cup because it's easier for me to dunk into that than it is to try to pour it on with the can. So I'm just going to get some on the pad here, and then we will start laying this on the wood. And you can see that it's just transforming that wood. Now that's how that wood's going to look when it's done. I mean, it just has this deep, rich color, and it's funny because this is a highly figured piece of wood right here. So this stain, not stain, but the Danish oil is getting sucked into those wood fibers. So there's areas along here that are like already dry, like right in here, because they're like little straws and they just suck the moisture in. Let me get around the edges here too. Doesn't matter if I get it on my gloves. Get it all the way around the sides. And when I'm done, I'm going to wipe all this stuff off as well. So any excess will get wiped off. But like right around here, this area right in through here and here is already dry of stain. It's already sucked it into the wood and there's not really any on top anymore. So I'm going to keep applying. I'm going to go switch it to the other side here. And just, this is why they say just flood the surface, because any extra just kind of gets soaked in. But that's a good thing with this stuff because, like I said, that varnish is now in the wood and is protecting from the inside of your wood. And that's why I like it. So it kind of helps keep like things like water penetration, things like that, moisture penetration into your projects. Not nearly as bad as something that doesn't soak in. So if you've ever made cutting boards, kind of like that, if anybody who's made in-grain cutting boards, you know when you put that oil on, it just sucks right into the wood grain. But I'm going to put this on really thick here. And we'll see how fast that kind of gets sucked in. I'm going to lay another thick one on here. But this looks really good. This just, oh, I'm so happy with the way these lids turned out. They're just really cool looking. Really, really cool looking. So I will set this aside and we'll let that soak in for a few minutes. And we are going to go ahead and grab this puppy. And I will do the bottom last, and then I can set it on the little stand thing. Sometimes what I'll do is actually do the inside first. I'm not so worried about the plywood at the bottom. I mean, it just gets a really easy coat. I don't care about reapplying to that so much, except that it, you know, since I'm using the dark walnut, it needs the color. But that's not really my focus with that plywood. It's just there as basically a dust collector. That's pretty much its whole purpose in life, is to collect the dust at the bottom of the base. But let's go ahead and get all these sides done here. These look really nice. Try to turn it this way so you can see a little better as I'm doing this. So I'm trying to hit all the corners and make sure every bit. Now there's a little, what was that on there? I think I had a little bit of, I don't know, something on there. I may have to come back and address that. There's something got on here. It may have been a little bit of glue or something, but I'm not going to worry about it at the moment. like I said, I don't really fret over the insides of these things too much because it's the part that nobody really sees. I mean, you know, hopefully nobody sees it because hopefully there's a machine sitting in this base that is happily being displayed and used, as opposed to it's sitting there empty, because that's not the purpose of this thing. The purpose is to display a sewing machine. Just make sure I get all of the surface covered here. But you can see that looks really nice, and it darkens up a little bit. So here's a little contrast, like at the bottom, you can see this is the untouched wood on this side, and this is the Danish oil portion of the plywood. You can see it doesn't darken up crazy. It's not like a super dark stain. But wherever this stuff hits on the walnut, it just does magical things to walnut. So I'm just squeezing some out here. I'm trying to get it all down in the little corners of the base here. This is the hard part about this, is getting it in the interior corners and making sure you get good coverage on all those corners. But anyway, oil makes wood grains on things like walnut just come alive. They look amazing when they get an oil type finish on them. All right, and I'm going to do around the rim here for the lid and make sure that that gets fully saturated. And the nice thing about these, like the paper towel thing that I'm doing right here, is that as I'm going, I just can squeeze on the towel and I get stuff that comes out. So I can kind of apply more as I go because it's soaked into the rag. Okay, that looks really good. I don't see any spots that I've missed. And now I can start going around the top like this, which is really simple to do, right? That's simple. And then we can start the fun stuff. So for me, that's like the faces of the wood. That's where the real beauty is on this stuff, is on the face. And hopefully you can see that. I mean, the gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. It's gorgeous. All right. I make sure that I get a lot right on the corners because there is end grain on the corners and it will soak it up more. So the corners usually get a little extra attention and a little extra soaking. And then in those handles, make sure that they get fully soaked in. Okay. And then, like I said, the corners, that end grain, anywhere there's end grain, it's just going to soak up more of the product. That's just what end grain does. It's like a bunch of little straws. Okay, and then now let me get the faces done here, and then I'll come back and do the logo really well, because that requires a little extra. I usually flood it on extra thick for the logo just to make sure it soaks in really well. Did I not get these edges? Oh, I haven't done the bottom yet. I'm like, why isn't these edges done? Because I haven't done them yet. That's why. Okay. So the sides all done, ends are done. So now I'm going to come back to the logo on the front here, and we're going to really soak this rag up and just kind of blotch it on here and squeeze as I go, just to make sure that I'm getting lots of the Danish oil into that logo. And then I can come back and just give it a little wipe. But it looks pretty good. Let me go ahead and do the bottom. And then I will put this on a stand and we'll go back and address the bottom again. But I'm just going to go around the edges here and then hit this plywood. Like that. There we go. And just as a contrast, let me grab this over here so you can kind of see where we started with this and where we end with this one over here. So look at the difference between those two, just with that oil. I mean, it's night and day, but it looks amazing when you do that. All right, I am going to put this little stand thing down here and just rest this on there just to let the bottom breathe a little bit. I can also, anywhere where I have some lighter areas where it's soaked in, I'm just going to give those a little bit more and make sure that my corners got a lot. And I'm going to go back and hit this again, top to bottom probably, with one more coat. This, not bad, but I still have some areas that are soaking in a lot. So I'm going to give this another lathering over here. Get this lid really lathered up. And because it's still soaking in pretty good there. I mean, it's getting to the point almost where it's saturated, but I like it to be at that point where you can tell that whatever's left is just going to sit on top, and then it can be buffed off. But this stuff, man, it just wants to soak in. That's not a bad thing. Same thing with, like I said, the end grain on these little triangular pieces will soak up a lot because end grain. So I'm just going to fill those up with, squeeze out a little bit more, let them soak in. And then I'm just going to run this around the exterior one more time and just make sure that I've got a really nice, even coat going all the way around. And just like that. So there we go. That is basically my finishing process for the oak, or not the oak, for the walnut. They look amazing. Let me clean this stuff off my hands here real quick. The oil just transforms the walnut into something just gorgeous. And honestly, if I wanted to, I could do 2 more coats of this stuff and then just leave it. So 3 coats total. And it would be protected. It would be enough. That's how I get my gloves off, by the way. It's like blowing up a balloon. But it works. But that's how, you know, I could leave it like that. But I prefer to put a top coat on because I have just found that while there's protection in the wood, it doesn't leave any protection on the wood. And with the lacquer coats on there, it does add a little bit of a hardness to the exterior and gives it what I think is the perfect sheen to the wood. So it looks basically like a waxed piece of furniture almost. Like a nice Johnson paste wax kind of thing on wood. But anyway, that's where I'm at here. I'm going to do that same process to the other 2. This is kind of what it looks like before. So that before and after, you saw that was pretty dramatic in terms of, I mean, this almost, you know, looks like a dusty light brown. But when you put that stain on there, man, this thing's, look at this right here. Look at that. That's pretty dark, right? And it's a rich, that's the thing about it. It's just a really rich color. That's what I really love, is that just super rich color. I would love to just make all of my projects out of walnut, but hopefully, as you saw in the video of when we took the tour of the wood shop, it is not financially plausible for me to do that. I would not have a lot of customers. I charge more for premium wood because I spend more for premium wood. So when I buy a piece, now that other that walnut that I got, which was the rustic whatever, we'll see. I may charge a normal price for that because I didn't pay a lot. But when you're paying $10 to $11 a board foot for walnut, you can't charge the same price that you would charge for cherry that you're paying 50 cents for. I didn't stand aside. That's why the pencil makes a good thing there, because you know what? I didn't sand this side because I see pencil mark. So that's another good reason to use the pencil on there, because you know when you've done your job. Anyway, I couldn't charge, I can't charge the same price for this base as I do for a cherry base, or even a red oak, or the sycamore, or any of those that are not premium woods. There are some woods that when I buy them, I just charge more because they cost more. I think they look beautiful and I think that they're worth the money. But things like mahogany, sapele, walnut, stuff like that, it goes up in price. I've got some, I haven't done one out of it yet. I really should. I've got some babingo that is just mind melting. It's so gorgeous. I might do one out of that one day. But I mean, something like that, I'd charge $150 at least for it, because it's just, you can't not upsell your premium woods. But I would love to do everything out of walnut because it's such a joy to work with. It always looks beautiful when it's finished. And you just get the most gorgeous grain. That's why it's one of the most popular furniture woods, right? That and like mahogany. In terms of beautiful furniture, oak is okay, but it ain't this. Cherry is another one that is, nicely priced for what you get. And if you get some really nice premium cherry, it has gorgeous grain in there and you can really get some beautiful look. I stain this stuff really dark, so it actually comes out about the same darkness as the walnut. I use a Kona stain on here and it does a pretty good job of that. So, oh, one last thing I was going to say, the other day I was talking about the staining process for the red oak, and I wanted to try something that was a little lighter than this. This was the Kona. Where's my other piece I had here? I'm trying to find my other sample board. I've got boards laying all over the place now. But anyway, this is the Kona wood here. Oh, hang on, it fell down. And oh, it's down on the floor. I have to go down here to the land of spider webs. It's awful. I hate it down here. I don't know where the other board went, but that's okay. Anyway, I was looking for something that was not quite as dark as that, and I got this, what is this? American walnut, which is a lighter stain. It's kind of in between the gunstock and the Kona. So not quite as light as gunstock, not quite as dark as the Kona. This was the Kona on top of the golden maple dye stain. This is what I came up with. It's hard for you to see. Let me try the other camera here. Because I've got, well, hang on, it's dirty. So let me wipe it off. There we go. So this is what I came up with. And I'm going to do this on the red oak bases. So you can see the medullary rays running through here. They look really beautiful and they're highlighted by the golden maple dye stain. And then you overlay this American walnut and you get this darker wash over top of it. And that looks great in my opinion. I really like that. Like I said, this, here, let me wipe it off. This was with the Kona on top. It's just too dark. That's just, you don't see the medullary rays and such in there, and you're not getting the golden medullary rays through it a little bit. I mean, you see, I can still pop it a little bit there, but this, it's right there, and it's at the surface. So this, a little bit longer process, but I think this will pay dividends. I only have 2 bases that are going to get finished that way. So it's not the end of the world. This was the other method right here. Here it is. This was the other method right here. And this was the gunstock. And I think the gunstock it's hard for you to tell, but the gunstock looks a little too light to me. I wanted something just a little darker than that. This is not much darker, but it is a tiny bit darker. Hopefully you can see that. And that's what I was after, was just something kind of a medium brown. Excuse me. And that's what I came up with. And I think it looks great. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at with that one. Like I said, it's a longer process because it's a 2-step staining process. I apply a dye stain, which is basically a water and stain, a powdered stain and water mix. So two things. One, I've already got the ratio mixed up, but you want the ratio mixed up right. The other thing is you need to pre-wet your wood with just a damp cloth and raise the grain and then resand it again, because it is a water-based stain. If you don't, you're going to get a very prickly surface even after you've sanded, because those grains, the grain lifts back up. Water kind of activates it and lifts those fibers back up. So after you've applied just a wash of damp cloth water on there, you let it dry, then you sand it smooth again with like a 320 or something. It'll be glassy smooth after that, and it will not raise again. The grain only raises once, so then you can go back, use the water-based stain, dye stain, and it'll still be nice and flat and smooth. So I'll apply the golden maple stain, and then I let that dry completely. Once it's completely dry, then I come back and I will apply a top coat of this American walnut, and then that just goes on like a regular stain. You let it sit for a couple minutes, then you wipe it off, and you're good to go. That's pretty much the coloring process. Then those things will sit for a little while, at least a couple of days, and then they start getting lacquered. So home stretch. These things, even though they say 72 hours, I usually wait longer than 3 days. Usually I'll go about between 5 to 7 days on an oil treated product before I top coat it, because I like it to be really, really cured. And so I've never had a problem waiting too long. I have had problems when I didn't wait long enough. And also, you know, based on humidity levels and things like that, sometimes it can be a difficult task to make sure they're dry. So you know what? I just err on the side of let's make them really dry or really cured, and then I don't have to worry about it. So I just poured that back in here. I'm going to wipe. I've got a little bit of this on my table here. Not that my table hasn't seen better days. But that's why I do it over here and not on my workbench. What time is it? 1:22. Well, the show started off as a pain in the butt and technical issues and such, but it finished pretty well. Super happy with this. This is just, I'm going to hold it up for you guys just so you can see. This is just gorgeous. I'm trying to get some color in there for you to see. The wood grain is awesome. Walnut just looks amazing. It's just, that's why it's one of my go-to wood types. I'm so happy with my book match on the lid. I mean, you can't go wrong. I mean, look at that. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's just downright tasty looking. Look at that. These are the little things that allow me to kind of up my prices a little bit, because it's the little finishing things, not the big things. It's the little things that add value. At least that's what I find. You know, my flush fitting lids, not the ones that sit on top. Book matching the lid covers so that you get interesting designs in there. You know, doing the little 1/8 inch roundover, doing the big roundover on the corners. You know, all those things, putting the handles in. The handles are huge. People love those handles like nobody's business. So thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the compliments there. Yeah, I'll be doing this again next Friday. Hopefully I'm going to have more of these done. I'm going to come in and sit in the shop. Since I got the Danish oil out, I'm going to finish these walnut ones already and kind of get them out and drying. And then I'll try to start working on some of the others. I might save one of the dye stain ones till Friday just so you can see the process, because that's kind of cool. The cherry one is just a regular staining process. And then the sycamore is just going to be a tung oil finish. So kind of the same thing as this, but without the color. It's just got a little amber color. So yeah, I think that's where we'll leave it for the day. Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. Everybody who came in, dropped comments, sliced me nice. Appreciate you being here, man. I appreciate it a lot. It's really great. And come back and visit, you know, whenever you can. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 o'clock. I'm always here. Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. I'm everywhere. So have a great rest of your day. I will see you guys Friday. Take care.